What's up, everybody? So we got some fight news. So the other day, I'm scrolling on social media, seeing what we got going on, and then bang, the UFC makes a post. They are heading to London for a fight night March 21st, and the headliner is a super high-level fight between two of the best in the featherweight division, Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. But that's not all. The UFC came prepared, dog. They gave us the entire bout order, the main card, the prelims. So I'm going to react, give my thoughts on this card, and then we are going to break down the main event, and I'm going to give my early prediction for this fight. But, man, I got to be honest. My BS senses are really tingling. My spidey senses are going off. And it's given the current landscape of the featherweight division. And it's also the new era that we are in when it comes to the UFC. So I hope I'm wrong, but I got a really bad feeling of what is about to go down in the featherweight division. And again, I don't know for sure, but I got a bad feeling. I got a real bad feeling. So we'll talk about it. And like I said, I hope I'm wrong. But obviously, this is a banger main event, man. Like Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy, like these are two dudes that should have been fought for the title. These guys are both undefeated. They're on crazy win streaks. And instead of the UFC giving an undeserved title shot to Diego Lopez to go back in there, do the exact same thing and get dominated once again by Alexander Volkanovski, they could have had one of these dudes go in there to fight Volk, and that would have been a fresh matchup. It would have been something that actually means something for Volk's legacy. Now, I'm not saying that beating Diego Lopez again and dominating him, I think that that's pretty significant for Volk's resume. It's not Volk's fault that they threw Diego in there once again. And I think Diego Lopez, to be fair, is the most dangerous guy in this weight class. So for Volk to do that, I think is incredibly impressive. But it's the fact that he could have added a new name to his resume. One of these guys that has not been beaten. So I think that this is a great matchup. I think that this is a true number one contender fight. Now, the problem is, at least that I've seen at the time of recording this video, I have not seen for sure that the winner of this is going to move on and fight Volk next, which they absolutely should. They absolutely should. This, to me, is a clear-cut number one contender fight. And then the rest of this card, I mean, I think it's meh. I think that this card overall is meh. I mean, I think the main event carries, but I mean, Luke Riley being in a co-main event, I think that that's kind of crazy, right? He's obviously someone they're trying to push, right? Coming over from Cage Warriors. He's a teammate of Paddy Pimblett. But to be fair, he went out there and had about as impressive as a debut as you can have. He goes out there against Bogdan Grad, who I know is not a world beater, but he's a pretty difficult guy to deal with. He's strong, puts the pressure on you, and Luke Riley goes out there and starches him in the second round, like your boy predicted. Right, Luke Riley's good, man. He's got good striking, and it's obvious that the UFC, they're really trying to build up some of these UK stars, right? I know people are like, well, whoa, this card's underwhelming for the UK, and I understand that, right? But at the same time, Paddy Pimblett just fought Justin Gaethje, because normally they'll have a fighter from that area headline, right? Normally the go-tos are Leon Edwards. Well, he's down and out. You got Tom Edwards. You got Tom Aspinall, who's injured. And then Pimblett just got beat up by Gaethje. So really, when you look around, there's not all these options. I think Lerone Murphy has a shot to be one of those guys, right? I know he doesn't have, the greatest personality. He's starting to chatter a little bit in the media in some of his interviews, which is almost what you have to do nowadays in the UFC, man. You have got to start marketing yourself. That's the route that the UFC is going. They're handing out title shots to the guys that get the most followers, bring in the most views. That's the era that we're in. Right, so I feel like Lerone is starting to understand that, and he's bitter about not getting a title shot, and so is Movsar, and I understand that. But this is a great main event. It carries the card, right? Luke Riley in the co-main event, I think, is crazy, and against Michael Aswell, like, Aswell's new here, man. And he's coming off of a KO victory over Lucas Almeida, who, that fight, I don't even know how it happened. That dude showed up to the ceremonial weigh-ins, and his hand was a balloon, dog. His hand was just so swollen and so massive, that thing looked broken as can be. Right, and the fight still somehow went through, right? So Aswell goes out there and gets a victory, and to me, it's a good fight. It's a banger. It's going to be a striker's delight, I would imagine. I think Luke Riley knocks him out. Right, but the one that just has me scratching my head is MVP versus Sam Patterson. Now, I think Sam Patterson can be one of the next big stars, man. Like, I really think Sam Patterson is really, really good. Ever since he moved up from lightweight to the welterweight division, he has been on an absolute tear, right? He went out there and ran over Danny Barlow and Trey Waters in the first round, knocked them both out. So the people that are out there thinking, oh, well, MVP is just going to go out here and stun on Sam Patterson, I'm not so sure that happens, because Sam Patterson's been a different beast at welterweight. He's got power on the feet, and he's got a really good ground game and a good submission game. Right, so if Ian Gary can get a hold of Michael Venom Page and dominate him on the ground, I would imagine that a guy who's actually known for his grappling in Sam Patterson might be able to give him some problems. Now, I don't know that Sam Patterson wins this fight. I haven't really decided who I'm picking here, but I just think it's a weird matchup, though, right? Because MVP comes into the UFC, fights Kevin Holland, fights Ian Gary and loses, which is his only loss, goes out there and stunts on Sharmagomedov, and then most recently goes out there and beats Jared Cannonier. So he's been bouncing around from welterweight to the middleweight division, and now he's fighting Sam Patterson. This, to me, is about, people are like, oh, well, they're handing MVP a can to go out here and stun. I mean, maybe. I think MVP is a big name, and I think that there definitely is that possibility, especially if Sam can't catch him on the feet, which isn't likely. It's just not something we see when it comes to MVP. But I think Sam Patterson's really dangerous, man. He's a guy that's really starting to find his groove. People, I think, are going to really overlook Sam in this fight. He's got power on the feet. He can knock you out, and he's got a very good ground game with a good submission arsenal. So I think it's a great fight. I just don't understand why MVP, why this is the fight that he's getting. This, to me, is maybe more about them trying to get Sam Patterson a big victory here. Because if you look at MVP, what do you really do with him if you're the UFC? Right? Is he going to beat the top guys in the welterweight division? No. If he goes in there and fights, a Prates or a Morales or someone that's probably going to stand there and strike with him, of course he has a chance. But at the top of the welterweight and middleweight division, you got all these grapplers that are a disaster for MVP. They are. So you basically have the choice of just throw MVP with guys that are going to strike with him, or maybe you give him, you give somebody like Sam Patterson an opportunity. And that's my read on this, man, is the fact that the UFC is trying to see if Sam Patterson is for real. And I think he is. An early prediction, I honestly am kind of leaning Sam Patterson. I think he has the ground game to trouble Michael Venom Page because, of course, we know MVP is a handful on the feet. He's a puzzle. He's slippery. He's elusive. But we did see Jared Cannonier take him down and control him on the floor. I know he didn't do a lot with it and didn't really cause any damage, and MVP still won the fight. But I think Sam Patterson's a dangerous ground specialist, man. I think that he's very, very good, and I actually think that he could go out here and beat MVP. And then you got Iwo Baranowski versus Austin Lane. This is nothing more than the UFC trying to feed Iwo a bone here, man. Austin Lane, he's not UFC caliber. I know he played football for, I think it was the Jacksonville Jags, and comes in, the UFC. He's this big, strong guy. He's pretty athletic, but he's just really not good at anything. He's got some power, but I don't know, man. I know he's got a little bit of a ground game, but Iwo Baranowski, he's coming off of a crazy debut victory over Ibo Aslan, where that was just a bar fight. They got in the pocket. They were slugging it out, forgetting the technique, full ooga booga mode, going back and forth in the pocket, and Baranowski knocked him out. Right, so that was a great debut. Again, not the most technical display of anything, but he went out there and got it done over a very dangerous guy in Ibo Aslan. So I think this is the UFC basically saying, all right, we're tossing you a bone here. And I think Iwo goes out here and knocks out Austin Lane in the first round. And one of my favorite fights on this card is Dolidze versus CLD. Christian Leroy Duncan, to me, is one of the prospects / dark horses to watch in the UFC here in 2026. I think that he is going to go out there and beat the brakes off of Roman Dolidze. I wouldn't be surprised if he stops him. Right, I know that they got 15 minutes to work with here. If it was a 25-minute fight, I feel very good about CLD stopping him in the mid to later rounds. Christian Leroy Duncan is one of these guys that, yes, he lost to RoboCop a few fights back. He is clearly getting better and better every single time out. And he went out there and brutally flatlined Marco Tulio, who is a super hyped up prospect coming off of DWCS, who's got powerful striking, a solid ground game. He had nothing for CLD, man. CLD, to me, is looking like a serious problem. His takedown defense is good. He's super explosive, very athletic on the feet, very dynamic striking. He's fast, he's precise, and he's got devastating knockout power. What do we know about Dolidze? He's the worst fighter in the rankings probably in the entire UFC. Roman Dolidze, man, I'm sorry, I don't know how he's in the right rankings, at least in the middleweight division. He's one of the worst ranked fighters in the UFC. Like, without question. He's got a solid ground game, good jiu-jitsu, but it's got to get there, right? His wrestling's not that good. His gas tank sucks. His striking is awful. It's awful. Of course, he's got some power, right? He could go out there, throw these big winging right hands and maybe catch somebody with something. CLD is going to beat the brakes off of Roman Dolidze. So that's why I think the UFC made this matchup here. Obviously, it's one of these fights where they're going to probably go out here and slug it out, but I don't think that this is competitive whatsoever, man. I think CLD passes his test with flying colors. He's going to beat up Roman Dolidze, and I think he stops him probably late second round, early third round. It's just going to be one of those things where he amounts to damage and really takes the wind out of the sail on Dolidze. So I think that's a good fight. So we got Dolidze and Duncan, good fight. Iwo Baranowski's going to get a KO, so that'll be fun. And then MVP versus Patterson. If Patterson can't get him down and he's trying to just kickbox on the feet, well, he's just going to get outstruck. And listen, As good as MVP is, a lot of his fights are not the most entertaining. That's the reality. And I like MVP a lot. I've watched his entire career, but that's the reality. And he's getting a little bit older. Right, and then Luke Riley versus Aswell, that's going to be a banger. Two guys going after it in the striking. And then Curtis Campbell and Denny Silva, not really big names, but they're, solid fighters. Then Mason Jones versus Axel Sola. Axel went out there, got a nice win in his debut. And Mason Jones, his second time around in the UFC, he had that crazy fight recently with Balaji Oki, right, where he was in crazy trouble and then ended up coming back, which I thought was one of the comebacks of the year, man. So that's a good fight right there. And then Nathaniel Wood and Lusane Keita, that is a banger, man. And Keita, I'm actually surprised that he's getting this opportunity because I think he was supposed to fight, Patricio Pitbull, and he missed weight, and the fight fell apart. And I'm like, man, trying to make your debut, missing weight, like that is a great way for the UFC to be like, nah, just kidding. No, you blew your shot, man. But when you watch Keita fight, you get to see why the UFC is like, we'll give you another chance, man, because he is unbelievably dangerous and explosive on the feet. But we've seen Nathaniel Wood. He's one of the most underrated fighters in the featherweight division. I think he's one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. Now, I don't think he won his last fight against Jose Delgado, but he's been in it with these high-level prospects that everyone's been hyped up on that are dangerous strikers, and he's going out there and putting the work in on these guys, man. And if he's not knocking them out or stopping them, he's right there with them, landing some big shots, taking them to school. So he's a crafty, savvy puzzle for guys to deal with, man. But I think that that's going to be an explosive fight. You got the well-rounded Nathaniel Wood, who's good on the feet, versus the very explosive prospect in Keita. So I think that that's a good fight. And then Louis Sutherland, right, got destroyed by Walter Walker, Brando Pericic. I mean, I think Brando's going to knock him out. He's a hyped-up guy, right, coming into the UFC. Actually, one of the heavyweights that's got some technique, not just a fat blob. And then Mantis Kondrativicius. I'm going to butcher that, man, so I'm not even going to. Kondrativicius versus Antonio Trocoli. I haven't seen anything about Mantis, but I imagine he can go out there and beat Trocoli because Trocoli's not very good. Shouldn't still be in the UFC. I'm surprised he still is. Mick Parkin versus Mario Pinto is one of the best fights on the card. Two solid heavyweight prospects, right? Mick Parkin went out there, against Tybura. It was a close fight. He lost. This is a good bounce-back opportunity, but I think he's going to get knocked out, man. Mario Pinto, I think he's one of the most dangerous heavyweights on the rise. He's very fast, very explosive, well-rounded. Then you got Shamrock on the card, right? So he's a hyped-up guy as well, training with Paddy Pimblett. And then Chanel Dyer versus Ravena Oliveira, which is why everybody's excited for the card. But, I mean, this card's all right, man. Like, it's meh. It's not great. Not bad. I think it's all right. I think people are tearing it apart a little bit too much. For me, it's just kind of the questionable matchmaking and the placement of some of the fights. But, I mean, I get it. They're trying to build Luke Riley. Iwo Baranowski's going to get a KO. CLD's going to stunt on Dolidze. And then I think Michael Venom Page, man, I feel like people might overlook Sam Patterson in this fight. Sam Patterson's been a completely different dude at welterweight when he's not draining himself to make 155. He's got a crazy frame, man, especially for the welterweight division. He's really dangerous. All right, now let's talk about this here. Why are my spidey senses going off? Why are my BS senses tingling? Now, when I say don't do it, I want to be very clear. I think that the UFC should go ahead and book this fight next. If they're not going to do Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez because Diego busted up both of his feet in the Volk fight because Volk checked a bunch of kicks, I like this matchup right here. Jean Silva versus Yair Rodriguez, two dudes who want to sit around and beg for a title fight that they shouldn't be getting. Go ahead and book them. Go ahead and book them, and if one of them can go out there and finish each other and they put on a banger and somebody wins here, okay, they could be next in line for a title shot. I don't really have a problem with that. But what we have going on right now is Yair Rodriguez, who's been out for a while once again. He's just had a super inactive career, man, and I just find it disappointing because Yair is, without a doubt, one of the most exciting fighters, I think, to watch. His striking is crazy, man. He's lightning fast. He's got this long-rangey flame. He throws some flames out there, man, with his striking. He's got some heat, But he's got this crazy frame for the featherweight division. He's a difficult guy to deal with, right? We've seen him have some issues with the grappling, but I don't think Jean Silva's grappling is good enough to deal, to take him down and just control him. So I think that this is a banger. This is a back-and-forth barn burner. I love this fight. And I think the UFC should book it. But what we have here is Yair, who went out there and beat up on Patricio Pitbull, who Patricio made his debut. And I understand people were hyping him up coming into the UFC. He hasn't looked particularly great. So you go out there and beat him and you think that just gets you another title shot to fight Volkanovski again? Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that whatsoever. What are we just going to throw Volk back in there with Yair again and he's super dangerous and just, what is the UFC just going to hope that Volk eventually gets KO'd by one of these super dangerous guys? That's the way it feels, man, and I get it. Going for the ratings and views, that's what the UFC's doing nowadays for the title fights. But then you got Jean Silva, who's out here being like, basically like Volkanovski's ducking him. Volkanovski doesn't duck anybody. He's one of, if not the best, he's one of the best champions that the UFC has ever had, man. And I think he's a top 3 fighter of all time. I got him at number 2 right behind Islam Makhachev. Like, Volkanovski's the GOAT featherweight, man. And the UFC needs to do right by Volkanovski and stop throwing him in there with these young guys that they're just hoping it feels that they could just go in there and knock him out and we could have a new champion and get Volk up out of there. That's the way it feels. That's the way it feels. And John Silva, yeah, okay, so he beat Bryce Mitchell. Goes in there, gets a big opportunity. Yeah, he's busting up Diego Lopez, to be fair, but then he gets overzealous and gets knocked out with a spinning elbow. Then you go out there and beat Arnold Allen, and I get it. Arnold Allen's pretty good, but it wasn't like a wow me kind of performance. I know he jumped on his back and was surfing and doing all that and the huff, huff, the barking, and I get it all. I find John Silva cringe, but I will say this about the guy. He's exciting, and he brings it every single time, as does Yair. But they do not deserve the next title shot. They do not, man. They don't deserve the next title shot. I would like to see the UFC go ahead and book this fight next. And if the winner of this, I have no problem with them being next in line for the title. But to me, this has got to be the clear number 1 contender fight. It has to be, and we need confirmation, man, that this is going to be next. And people go, Movsar's boring, Lerone's boring. Lerone Murphy literally went out there and flatlined Aaron Pico. And we all know Aaron Pico was being hyped up by the UFC. He was being brought in as possibly the next industry plant, the next little golden boy that if Aaron Pico went out there and knocked out Lerone Murphy at 319, can you tell me with a straight face that they would have not given Aaron Pico possibly the next title shot? I think they would have. 100%. 100%. Why would Lerone have taken that fight? I still have my thoughts on what happened behind the scenes. Why would Lerone risk his ranking on short notice in a co-main event to take on a guy who is completely unproven in the UFC to where we have all these question marks? He's got the wrestling accolades. He's got crazy power, in his hands. It's a risky fight for Lerone. And with high risk comes great reward. Goes out there and knocks him out. Right? And I felt like that was like the perfect opportunity. I'm like, now Lerone's going to get a title shot, but nope. And then Movsar Evloev's been on a crazy win streak, right? Just came off of a super entertaining fight against Aljamain Sterling, one of the better grappling fights we've seen, right? And then had a crazy fight with Arnold Allen. That was a barn burner, right? I thought that was a super fun fight to watch, and he actually hurt Arnold Allen. John Silva wasn't really able to hurt Arnold Allen. Movsar Evloev's got underrated striking, man, but these guys are undefeated, man. They are undefeated. And Movsar Evloev's most recent victories, his notable wins, right? Aljamain Sterling, Arnold Allen, beat Diego Lopez. And I know it was short notice. It was the debut for Diego Lopez. It's still impressive. Diego's very dangerous, right? And he had several fights before coming to the UFC. And then he beat Dan Ige as well. Right, so when you look at Movsar Evloev, this is a guy that's undefeated. He's got a well-rounded ground game, and he's clearly one of the people that think could possibly be the next champion in this weight class. Then you have Lerone Murphy, who's undefeated as well, beat Aaron Pico by a brutal knockout, beat Josh Emmett, Dan Ige, Edson Barboza, and Gabriel Santos. And I think that Santos fight has actually aged really well because I think that he's going to be one of the next dangerous guys in this weight class. Right, so both of these dudes have been putting in the work, man. They've been fighting dangerous guys. They've been beating some of the dudes in the rankings. People are going to be, well, Lerone fought Aaron Pico. He's not in the rankings. Well, the UFC asked him to step in on short notice, and I like to believe that they would have given Pico a title shot if he beat Lerone Murphy. So, but because Lerone spoils the party, he didn't get a title shot now? The winner of this fight should absolutely fight Alexander Volkanovski. So what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at two of the best featherweights in the world. Now, I'll be real on a level. They're not the most dangerous guys. I know Lerone Murphy got the spinning elbow KO, against Aaron Pico, and now, he's a knockout artist. That's not the reality of Lerone Murphy. What you have is a technical striker on the feet with a pretty solid ground game versus a high-level wrestler with very underrated striking in Movsar Evloev. And I think Movsar is going to win this fight. Now, I lean decision. But there's that part of me that thinks Movsar is going to come into this fight and have a lot more of a point to prove than we have seen in fights past. And I think Lerone Murphy for the same thing here. I honestly feel like the winner of this, in order to get that next title shot, they need to get a finish. And I know that that's not maybe the most fair thing because you could say, well, Yair went to a decision against Patricio and John Silva went to a decision against Arnold Allen. And I understand that. So if they go to a decision, why should that be held against them? But it's the reality that the UFC likes to feed into these narratives that they spew and that other people spew of these guys being incredibly boring. I understand that they are pretty much decision merchants. Movsar has not had a finish since he has been in the UFC. But if you look at a majority of these fights, they are actually pretty entertaining. I would say that Movsar's fights have actually been more entertaining than Lerone's. So if you're going to dog on anybody for being boring, I think Lerone should be the one that gets more blame than Movsar. right? Because Movsar's last 2 fights were really entertaining. You weren't entertained by the Diego Lopez fight, the scrambles, Diego putting him in danger on the ground. Like, Lerone's been going out there just kind of picking and poking for 15 minutes or 25 minutes against Emmett and not doing a whole lot of anything. But the reality is these guys are high level. You can't take that away from them, man. And Lerone Murphy, to me, on the feet, he's maybe the more tactical striker, but I think Movsar can hurt him on the feet, man. I have my questions about Lerone Murphy's durability. I think he's kind of chinny. We've seen him wobbled. We saw Dan Ige catch him with a shot. I know it was kind of right behind the ear, right on the side of the head, which kind of knocks you off balance and all those kinds of things. But I think Movsar is going to come in with a point to prove. I think that we're going to see him mix in the wrestling because he's got an advantage there. And I think we're going to see him posture up and really let the ground and pound loose in this fight. And I think on the feet, Movsar could definitely hang with Lerone Murphy. And I think that Movsar's got really good power, right? I know he hasn't been knocking anybody out, but if you looked at what he did to Arnold Allen, I mean, he stung him, man. He absolutely stung him. He landed some big shots on Aljo as well. So I think in this fight, Lerone Murphy's going to come in being like, I'm the better striker. I just got to stop the takedowns, keep this thing on the feet, and this fight's mine. And I do favor Lerone on the feet over Movsar. But when you have the high-level grappling that Movsar does, you can you can put the pace on Lerone, you can back him up against the fence, you can wear him down with the grappling, you can put that pace on him and start to let your hands go. I think Movsar is going to win this fight. Now, I lean decision, but I would not be surprised if we see Movsar's first finish in this fight because I think that he knows, man, I got to go out here and I got a point to prove. Because if I go out here and this thing goes to a decision, it's just going to play right into the hands of the, it's basically already going to be written. The UFC is going to be like, these guys are boring and they didn't show us anything that they should go in there and get the next title shot. That's unfortunately the reality with this fight is it's a super high-level fight. It's very clear to me that the winner should move on and fight for the title, but given how their fights have went, they're not looked at as the most exciting guys compared to a John Silva or a Yair Rodriguez. But at the end of the day, they are absolutely deserving of fighting for the title next. This, in my eyes, is a number 1 contender fight. Now, we got to wait to hear from the UFC, but I think that they're going to wait to see how this fight plays out. If it's a crazy barn burner, crazy back and forth, and it goes to decision, and everyone's going nuts about it, I could definitely see the UFC going ahead and giving them the next title shot. But I'm just telling you, man, I'm saying that whoever wins this should absolutely get the next title shot. I'm trying to look at the UFC through their lens of the way that things have been going with these title fights. And I'm just telling you, if these dudes go out there and this is some sort of snooze fest for 25 minutes, Movsar takes him down, doesn't do a whole lot, Lerone runs away and doesn't do a whole lot on the feet, and we just have a very low action-packed fight here, they are going to skip these guys. They are. I just have a feeling that they're going to do it. So the reality is both of these dudes, they need to show up. They need to show up. They need to get after each other and just know that even if you go out there and you stick and move and fight this perfect strategy and you go out there and you do what you had to do, you win, you get your show money, your win money, all that kind of stuff, that's great. But in the new era that we are seeing in the UFC, you need to have statement performances. Unless you're a massive star, you have to have these statement performances, man. And unless you're one of the guys that the UFC's backing and they got your back, like a Sean O'Malley, like a Paddy Pimblett, these guys are not in that situation. So they need to come in. They need to bring it. I think that they are. They understand the situation. They understand the way that things are working. I imagine their coaches, their management are going to make them very aware of that. And I think they come in and I think we get a very action-packed fight. But I favor Movsar Evloev to win this thing by an exciting decision. I think we see some good back and forths. I think we see Movsar land some shots on the feet. I think we see Lerone land some shots on the feet. It's almost like when we heard the rumors of this happening, I'm pretty sure Lerone posted a picture of him like Movsar being dropped or something by him, or I don't know what was going on there. So maybe we get a little animosity here. Maybe we get a little bit of a build-up. So I'm excited for this fight. Super high level. Like I said, the winner of this should definitely move on and fight Volkanovski next. And the UFC needs to do right by Volkanovski, man. They really do. Like, this guy has been around. He's been one of the best champions the sport has ever had. He's been super active. He's constantly fighting. Have him go in there against a fresh matchup here. These are two guys that Volk has not fought, and they're both undefeated. Well, one of them's not going to be undefeated. But either way, winner moves on, fights Volkanovski. I think these dudes come out here with a point to prove. I would not be surprised if we see Movsar get his first finish in this fight. I think if he comes with the wrestling pressure, lands some shots on the feet, pressures Lerone, takes him down, beats him up on the ground, I wouldn't be surprised if he could get some sort of stoppage on the ground. I know Movsar is not known for having this crazy ground and pound, but he's got some pretty underrated striking that I think people sleep on. So two really high-level fighters. Both of these guys are really, really good. I don't think they're the most dangerous guys in the weight class, but they are both very deserving of title shots given the body of work that they have been putting in so far. So great matchup. Happy the UFC put this thing together. I just hope they do right by these guys, by the winner going out here in a fight night main event, going out here. And like I said, these guys have got to know that the UFC, man, it almost feels like they're looking for a reason. It almost feels like they're looking for a reason. Maybe I'm reaching, but I feel like a lot of people feel that way. Like, do you guys agree? Am I crazy that if they go out there and this is some sort of snooze fest in the main event, I could just hear it now. Oh, well, they didn't really show us anything to go out there and get the next title fight. Is anyone going to be excited to see these guys fight Volk? And no matter who wins, even if it kind of was, I'd still be excited to see these guys fight Volk. It's a fresh matchup for Volkanovski. It's a fresh matchup for Volk, a new name to add to his resume. So I'm excited to see how this thing plays out. I think it's a very high-level fight. And from top to bottom, I mean, I don't think it's the best card, right? But I do think that there are some exciting matchups and there's some fun prospects on here that the UFC is clearly trying to build up. But if you guys enjoyed this video, if you could do me a favor, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. I'll see you next time.